Absolutely.
So for those who don't know me, my name's Alan. I'm the co-founder of Sensona, and Sensona is an ABM platform that turns AI account research, so it constantly researches your customers, your most important accounts, finds key signals about those customers, and then it helps marketers to turn that into content like ads or microsites, emails, white papers with just a few clicks. And I'm really excited to, speak to one of our customers, Austin from LHH. And I'll do my best to introduce you, Austin. So Austin's currently the global ABM director at LHH. Before that, he served as head of demand gen at companies like Cellpoint. He was director of performance marketing at Elevon and the AVP of social media strategy at US Bank. Today's Austin's doing some really cool stuff with AI in LHH's ABM program, doing quite a lot with a pretty small team, and I'm pretty excited to just pick your brain and get some of the things that we've been working on and how you think about ABM, and hopefully it's valuable to the people on the call. Let me know if there's something I missed there and kind of your background.
That's great. Really happy to be here. I have been with LHH for just over a year, so there's a lot that we've done so far, but still a lot to accomplish. So excited to talk about it.
Thanks, man. I thought just starting with a bit of a question that's on people's minds. It might not be as sequential to, kind of your journey and then what you're doing now with AI, but I just thought since that's kind of the topic I think people are interested in, there's a lot of fear about AI taking people's jobs, killing marketing roles. And I just wonder, what's your mindset around, is it a danger existentially to you and your colleagues, or something that is really about, helping you scale and be like 5, 10, 100x what you can be without it? How do you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the latter. I think that, there was actually a really interesting conversation that we had with actually General Assembly, which is one of a company that LHH, is a General Assembly is a subsidiary of LHH, and is ultimately doing some really cool things around upskilling and reskilling employees in AI. And what the speaker was talking to us about was this idea about jobs coming, and are they going to replace you, or like kind of what's going to happen? And what I really left with was just feeling empowered that, where it's only coming for jobs if you kind of sit on your hands, or if you do nothing, or if you're unafraid to take calculated risks. And so I really looked at it as, employees are only going to be able to build a higher profile within an organization as they're able to take on and really, like you said, scale their efficiency and their ability to use tools at their disposal to just do some of the work that in many cases would take hours of administrative time, or sorting through certain insights or areas that now that we can really super speed track to get to a much quicker cadence, and something that can allow us to really focus on some of the key areas where you can differentiate yourselves around strategy, or kind of getting to know the customer better, and really forming campaigns that kind of bring both of those together.
Why do you think some people take the opposite view, or maybe don't even publicly say, "Oh, I'm scared, I'm going to block any of this technology," but actually don't embrace that sort of thinking?
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a fear of change and just kind of the unknown. I think that a lot of us are kind of get into routines where we're, kind of doing similar activities that are tried and tested and have led to business before. But one thing that I've always tried to find is just ways to really build on kind of an existing process, or implement a new system that can really drive just better results or returns for us.
Yeah, so I guess you've like embraced these things before and seen the returns of it, rather than putting blockers up to just protect the old world, right? The horse and buggy.
Exactly right. There's and maybe it's just kind of being this digital native as kind of a millennial, that it's always been something that I've tried to stay a step ahead of the curve on. As you kind of said in the introduction, I was in on our social media team at US Bank previously, and I think one of the key areas that I tried to find was, as the advent of digital, social media advertising came about, I really wanted to partake in those types of campaigns and performance marketing and others where we can really start to tie revenue back to activity that we're, that we are doing. And so that's where I've really been looking at AI, is how can I start to, really differentiate the marketing that we're doing, and then automate some of the things that, as Rory, kind of one of your co-founders, also says, it's like you're talking with a really smart fifth grader. And so you kind of have to just understand prompting and, what you ultimately want to accomplish. But it's been a really, fun, period that we've been working together, and it's really helped to allow us to automate, quite a bit that I was having to do manually before.
Yeah, awesome. And I'd love to jump into that. Before, maybe you could give us just a bit of context. So you came from these other companies, brought into LHH to, spin up an ABM program. Not every company has it. I think it's the CAGR of ABM is pretty healthy in double digits. But there's still not that many of you guys out there kind of running global programs across really important customers. So maybe you just give us context to like why you're brought in and what's really the goal that you're trying to achieve with, team of one or a growing team of a few within LHH.
Sure, absolutely. So I was really excited to join LHH. There's a unique opportunity here in that, primarily our marketing is really well integrated with sales, but has primarily been focused on demand generation and new logo. And so what we're looking at, or why I was brought in, was to help to establish within our enterprise customers, how can we really start to cross-sell and deepen relationships so that it goes beyond just kind of this individual transaction where we might kind of sell our recruitment solutions or our outplacement or career transition services into more of that elevated partner where we're now meeting with the CHROs and these other VPs of HR rather than maybe a procurement manager or someone that's just kind of in charge of a reduction in force or whatever it might be. So it's been really awesome to be in this environment because we really have a target set of accounts, many of which are current customers of ours in one capacity or another. But because these are global organizations, we really look at, kind of what we call internally, but then also, externally is more known as white space. So, where is there opportunities for us to deepen that relationship? We look at it either we can sell, more of our services through cross-sell. We can sell to different regions or geographies around what we want to sell. And then finally, we might be able to deepen within certain business lines. So say potentially we recruit for accounting and finance folks at a company today. We might want to expand that and include, engineers or administrative assistants or whatever it might be. So it's really kind of a cool playground because we can use this research around what these companies are thinking about and are top of mind, and then position these really niche kind of one-to-one ABM campaigns that allow them to, allow us to understand that, hey, we have a point of view on your business and how we can, help, shape and partner with you to advise and consult around that, while also recognizing that, hey, you guys are going through, maybe a tricky period or, an opportunity where you might need someone from the outside that can kind of help assess and really meet some of your needs. So it's been a great, year plus, and I've been really excited about some of the results so far.
Yeah, and I remember when we first got introduced, you and I, like our thesis as a startup, right, is that if AI is really good at understanding a bunch of information, you can give it a bunch of tools to go and scrape the web, to go send and retrieve stuff from CRM systems, and then it can also output stuff, and that's kind of been the magic everyone's seen through ChatGPT. And our thought was, if you can do really deep account research and turn that into really thoughtful content, that it should resonate better because it would mimic more like what you experience on TikTok or on YouTube or on Instagram, right? A very different personalized feed than someone else, even your wife or someone who's super close to you, because it really understands what sometimes don't even realize that you want, right?
Right.
Or need. And so I wonder what when we first started talking and we kind of brought that message around, hey, you can do cool stuff with account research. Like why did it resonate with you? Because not every marketer sort of sees that. That's the lens that we come from account directors at Salesforce, but not marketers tend to think in a one to many. Like I wonder what sort of clicked for you about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, there are a few things. And so first, what I would say is, in selling these large enterprise deals where they're 10,000, employees plus, these are long sales cycles that can sometimes be 7 to 12 months to start to finish. You're bringing in multiple stakeholders, different personas that are all evaluating. And what really clicked for me is when you've seen just kind of maybe the economic situation or how folks are thinking about kind of spending money today. It's really, if you're not getting consensus across your personas and stakeholders, you're more than likely going to get stalled out and not have a deal kind of go through, or maybe it's less than what you guys had originally talked about, or there's a lot of different factors that might come into play there. But so I think that if you don't have the having research and being able to understand your customer, share that point of view, and then resonate with each of the different personas, I think was critical. When it really clicked for me that AI though was kind of the right path is early on at LHH, we were looking at a financial services company that we wanted to target. And we kind of went through this entire kind of standard marketing process where, we kind of did some initial research through like Sales Navigator, some LinkedIn Talent Insights, using ChatGPT and some prompts there, and just kind of, bringing together a lot of different sources of information. We met with sales, we met with our content teams, we went out to develop and then created a specific one-to-one landing page around how we were going to be recruiting these next tech engineers that there was a huge opportunity for us to push within the US. And after about 6 weeks, the whole process from the account research all the way through to creation, we completely missed the boat. They no longer were hiring for that many roles, and more or less we put in a huge not only time suck in terms of like how much resources it took there, but then also just from building a lot of different marketing materials that we could no longer go to market with, I think was like a real like kind of game changer in my mind, where we needed to think like, okay, how can we speed this up? How can we be almost monitoring or tracking some of these intent signals rather than how can we surface it and then kind of quickly create content so that it's not a 6-week delay or process when we get some hot news piece that that we're able to find through our prompting.
Yeah. And in ABM, like there's basically been two major players in software that have sort of dominated that space, Demandbase and 6sense, right? They kind of have spent tens, hundreds of millions of dollars educating the market. And so ABMers talk a lot about like signals, but like account research AI signals, like maybe you can give an example of one that we've worked on. How is that different than signals that, let's say other ABMers are paying attention to and within these other systems?
Yeah, I still, like, don't get me wrong, I think that their intent tracking and data can be a really valuable piece for like our content calendar, or for identifying accounts that might be open for some broader account research that we are doing with Sensona. But where this is kind of really differentiated is that we've got the ability to so we can take kind of this major CPG brand that we're kind of working on right now, and there's a huge opportunity where they're investing, they're doing some reductions and kind of downsizing their company, but at the same time, they're investing in R&D and in their marketing teams and kind of different supply chain functions that can ultimately kind of reinvent or just kind of help reinvigorate some of the maybe older business lines that aren't as successful as others. And so what we're able to do was see the signal. We were able to kind of specifically reference their company blog that was talking about it, and then we can dynamically create individual and tailored landing pages. In this case, we created 3 separate ones that were all kind of co-branded. They all had followed our brand templates, our voice, and other areas that we were able to upload, and just kind of created a full campaign within a matter of a few hours and a couple of clicks. And so what I would say, kind of back to the original question, is like the signal and kind of the different triggers that we've set it up for is we've really been able to embed our own sales knowledge, or when good opportunities to call on these types of companies are, and coupled with like kind of the prompting, like we're almost getting a more kind of more intense or kind of robust version of a standard intent signal that you would see in a demand base or a sixth sense. So it's been really cool to see where it's come, and the ability to track hundreds of accounts and kind of get all of that, since we've done the upfront work of kind of building out our knowledge hub and who LHH is, like our brand voice, our materials, and then what triggers are coming. It's really now about scaling and kind of putting the foot on the acceleration. So it's good.
Yeah, and for those who, I apologize about the roosters again outside of my window for the recording, and for those listening. Can you, for those who don't know, Sensona and the sort of application layer that we've built on top of these different language models and different, API services, can you just explain how this has all been set up so that you can now scale as a team of 1 or 2, for large set of enterprise accounts within this ABM program?
Sure, absolutely. So it's basically been a platform that we've worked to kind of, as I had mentioned, just share and train the models around the LHH knowledge hub, while being very, I would say, calculated in our risk taking around how the data is, I guess, kind of shared or not shared, kind of locked down within Sensona, so that we're able to kind of quickly, we're not having to, if you go to ChatGPT, and yes, they're certainly, as it's evolved, it's gotten kind of smarter about your previous prompts and things like that, but it's already starting. Sensona is already a platform that, with the Knowledge Hub, is already starting as an LHH marketing employee because of the training that it's been given. Coupling that with the 100 to 200 accounts that we're tracking within Sensona, setting up the triggers and other areas, it's allowed for kind of us to combine 2 different just portions that allow and kind of quickly create content against that. I know I probably didn't do a good enough job of explaining that, but please let me know if there's anything I can help clarify.
Yeah. Sorry, these roosters. I have no idea why they've decided to come right to my window. Why is it important to have this sort of brand guardrails, right? Like, you gave us a lot of stuff that LHH has clearly built out, how you talk about your brand and your different fonts and your colors and all that. How is that important? Like, why is that critical for you to actually scale this on a week-to-week basis for your, this large program versus, again, using ChatGPT or these kind of generalized tools to kind of execute your workflow?
No, absolutely. And so certainly you, like, as an individual, can kind of create your own prompts that, you can reference, like, in even Reddit can be kind of a good source of just some ideas on some training and, just other prompts that you can do to kind of help manipulate some of these language learning modules. But what's really set it apart, or what I'm confident on every time I go into Sensona, is I know that I'm not having to, while we always have the human interaction and kind of human oversight before anything does go live, we know that there's already a basis of understanding around what it is pulling from, and the review and the tweaking. Like, I can just think of, a handful of examples where just using ChatGPT, I've said, you know what, no, that wasn't a good email, or, something like that. Just try it again. And so there's what this has allowed us to do, though, and just through help with you and Rory and continual learning, is we've been able to really hone in on where we feel that the content that it produces is, 90 to 95% of the way there. And we just need to have that human intervention and oversight that can allow us to streamline the campaigns and move at a much quicker pace. So it's good, though. I mean, it's been a strong, tool for us. And I know it's only continuing to get better as, like, AI continues to exponentially get closer. The other thing I would say is, okay, I personally pay for Chat GPT, just kind of one of the professional licenses, just monthly. But what Sensona has allowed us to do is access multiple language learning modules that, like, excel in different areas. So, Chat GPT, and Sensona doesn't tell us, exactly which language learning module it's pulling from, but, Claude might be good for HTML. Gemini might be good for generating images, ChatGPT maybe for marketing content or for, reasoning. So, like, this kind of combines the power of all of those, and just allows us to kind of do it in one platform, which I think has been a really nice benefit from that.
Yeah, well, and there are things obviously that in the background you don't see, we may expose in the future in terms of the prompting and so on. But when you work with APIs, you can actually change things like something like the temperature, right? And so that it's like this, like, fine-tuned dial that you don't really have when you're just using words to talk to the LLMs. And we found, for example, like Claude as a model is better at creating the output, but there are other models they're better served for deep research. And we've actually had to put in an additional agents to find, basically be the bullshit radar and find the things that, aren't true, that are happening at these large organizations. Because the last thing you want is for it to make something up, and then you're creating this campaign, you're spending ad dollars on it, you're sending, emails out, from your CRM system, and then they're like, well, that never happened, right? And so there's this additional sort of quality layer. It's almost hard to get people to understand until they've seen bad results and are trying to do things at scale that they just want that kind of dealt with. I wonder if you can share an example of some of the early results, because that's for us been something that we've been really excited by. That you've seen, you mentioned the CPG company ran this first campaign. Maybe you could just paint a little picture around that.
So, and as LHH, for those that maybe don't know, we are an HR services company that provide end-to-end talent solutions. So we provide everything from recruitment to training and coaching to upskilling, reskilling, and then ultimately a career transition. If a large organization might be going through a reduction in workforce, we kind of help with coaching and some of these other areas that allow them to find their next job. And so with this, we've set up kind of all of our different triggers that we know might signal an opportunity. Maybe it's poor company performance, or maybe it's, looking at their blog, seeing where there have been mergers and acquisitions, or, kind of different signals that can very easily be found through AI and deep research. And so with this CPG brand, we were really excited because we identified kind of 3 initial key areas that they were undergoing, and all of them were really kind of interconnected. But we went to market to HR kind of business partners, as we'll call them, which are kind of these directors that are basically in charge of, how basically testing the temperature of their organization, keeping them happy, retaining them, but then also, kind of ensuring that there's like brand, overall employer brand safety and just other things that are kind of all coming together and that they're evaluated against. And so 3 in particular were around, I kind of mentioned it before, but how they were kind of kind of shifting some of their resources to focus on investments around AI. Well, we have General Assembly, as I mentioned, that has a great upskilling, program and set of skills that we can put employees through. So that's kind of a no-brainer trigger for us. We saw there was some return to office work where, they were trying to bring employees back in, as has kind of been a trend with some of these large organizations. And then we've also seen, kind of back to the, first point, there were a total of 7,000 employees over the next 2 years that were going to be laid off. And so we were able to quickly put together 3 different landing pages. We had an entire LinkedIn ads campaign, marketing emails, and then sales nurture kind of engagement journeys as well to kind of support that. And I've got the numbers right here, but we were really excited about the overall click-through rate. In targeting, just to give you a sense, in targeting our HR business partners at one company across the globe, we were looking at just under 1,000 people that were kind of in our target audience that we wanted to go after. If you have done any LinkedIn advertising in the past, they would recommend that you're over 25,000 members or all the way up to 50,000 plus should be your kind of starting audience size to ensure you have the right click-through rates, engagement rates, et cetera. Well, we still went forward with this kind of really small niche audience because we were really, happy and kind of excited about the research that we had done. And we had, comparing against our benchmarks, we had 100% increase in our click-through rate, 106%, excuse me, and then a 226% increase in our engagement rate compared to what our standard LinkedIn, like kind of demand generation based campaigns are. And so what it signaled to me is that we're showing up with a point of view around how our products and services can help them. We're saying we understand their business, and then we're also using personalization and other kind of key components of ABM to really stay relevant, top of mind, and kind of garner that the click or interaction that we've really been setting out to do. So it's been exciting.
Yeah, and we're very excited about those numbers as well. And the engagement is that how they're not scrolling anymore on LinkedIn? They're sort of staying static on that piece of real estate, and that's kind of engaged, that counts.
Correct. It could be through a reaction. It could be through kind of how long it's kind of within the screen. It's clicking through to the website. But it's really what it's showing is you're able to break through the monotony of a news feed and actually get their eyeballs to stop and kind of make a brand a brand moment that they can hopefully later recall LHH and just kind of what our I go back to it again, but what our point of view was about how we can help their business.
Yeah, and I thought this is probably a good moment to tie into your collaboration with sales, because ABM is very much about that. And I've heard your leadership, talk really fondly about how sales perceive, your work with them. And even you've shared with me how they've kind of responded to some of the account research work. So talk to me about, maybe just using this campaign as an example. How do you kind of take residual pieces of data, information, insights from that research, from that campaign, and kind of build a stronger partnership with sales, and I don't know, maybe make sure that they're singing the same tune as your ads? And how do you approach that?
No, that's a great question. And one of the things I've been very fortunate in joining LHH is from the beginning, our sales organization has been very committed to what ABM can do. There were pockets of ABM that were kind of happening at our organization. And so being able to define it in partnership with sales around kind of what the process meant, how research would come together, while I can still add my, subject matter expertise in terms of marketing, campaign development, and strategy, they can bring some of those different triggers and, other elements that they've seen within the conference room or sales room that have allowed, us to really be on the same page in terms of what we are searching for in our deep account research. And what we've really done is we've just stood up. We've got a really strong kind of connected and agile sales organization where they're assigned a handful of the strategic accounts that we're going after. We have an inside sales rep that is also, kind of in charge of booking meetings and, kind of helping with supporting the overall momentum within that account. And so it's kind of taken a number of different, kind of form just based upon the preferences of our sales folks. But in many cases, we're just building a little scrum where we're sharing those insights regularly. They're kind of basically saying, you know what, I've been hearing something similar as I was having my quarterly business review around this topic. Let's fold in maybe some legal recruitment or like some other elements that can kind of help support some of the signals that we're seeing. And then there's kind of this process too, where we've been able to have the oversight from sales without kind of getting weighed down and everyone having to voice their opinion. We know I'm connecting with the inside sales reps on a weekly basis around the insights. I'm providing them with the scripts and just kind of sales engagement journeys that, that they're welcome to use or kind of, manipulate to fit their own voice. And then we have that constant feedback loop that's kind of showing, hey, this is turning into an opportunity. Here's the deal size. Like, how do we progress it to the next step? Like, so it's been, primarily we're really just using outside of Sensona our internal tools. It's around using the Teams chats that everyone's kind of already on daily anyway. It's around, just having some regular cadences where you're meeting up. But then really being able to kind of, I think be able to influence and kind of identify these needs has really been able to get us like a full consensus that, everyone's marching to the same drumbeat. So it's good.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the day where an ad goes out and then they ring the stakeholders about the same insight, and it really sort of organically comes together and you get some of this feedback. I imagine at scale for all the accounts that you're supporting now that it's going to happen. When we're doing 1-2 accounts at a time, it's probably difficult. And I've held roles, as like at Salesforce as an account director, and it's not easy for marketers to build that respect from sales. Not respect as a colleague or as a human being, but respect from sales in terms of, I know my customers, the use cases, I know business problems, I know pain, I know, financial metrics. Marketing knows how to talk about buzzwords, right? And they know how to talk about brand. And I think like ABMers have this unique challenge of really trying to be like, kind of elevate themselves between the eyes of salespeople who are pretty impatient. And if you send kind of, let's say, bullshit insights for a short period of time, they're probably going to disregard future things that you send. Would make it quite difficult for you to collaborate with them.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And honestly, that's kind of where we've been pretty intentional with knowing we have a subset of accounts that we really are focused on one-to-one opportunities and deep research, because we really want to get it right. These are, like I said, in many cases, existing customers of ours in one case or another. And if we're going to market with an insight that doesn't resonate or just is BS, then we're kind of putting our future revenue or deals in at jeopardy. So there's I think what I really wanted to focus on was how can we kind of tailor these one-to-one campaign processes, and then from there, let's start to scale to a one-to-many industry, and then one to few industry, and then one-to-many, and so on and so forth. But it's to have, just as you definitely named a lot of the some of the stereotypes that salespeople will sometimes be tagged with, but if you're able to have that conversation with them and then influence in those key areas, it's just kind of amazing how quickly everyone jumps on the same wagon when you are able to really just kind of come with a point of view and know what you're talking about. And Sensona has definitely helped with that.
Thanks, man. And I think one thing I'd love to just pick your brain on is how you obviously there's budget aligned to you, there's budget aligned to your sort of to ABM at LHH, and you've got to prove value over time. Otherwise, well, any company will say that strategy is not working, and it's notoriously difficult with ABM. So what are you doing to kind of prove to the business that it's continuing to add value, show contrast, prove the ROI of the program?
No, absolutely. So we are doing kind of a combination, I would say a multi-touch attribution kind of model for how we are crediting account-based marketing with a closed deal. Typically, what that will mean is there needs to be multiple exposures to our content, either through LinkedIn advertising, through marketing emails, or other kind of digital or organic touch points, maybe events or things like that. And so what we're doing is we're basically kind of tracking them through a Salesforce campaign around where they've responded, where they've clicked, opened, et cetera, and then creating a distribution model around what the closed won amount was, and giving the credit back to kind of the marketing team related to that. So the big thing that we're out to kind of really measure, and I don't think that this is unique to LHH for our ABM program, and many as ABM marketers will do this, but we look at, obviously, pipeline generated is the number one thing that sales cares about, and in many cases an entire organization cares about. But the other two metrics that I think have really allowed us to demonstrate, hey, this is something that is working, is we look at the deal size. So are deals larger than those that maybe were not exposed to an ABM campaign? And then how quickly does a deal close? Is this something that when they get on the line with sales, from a proposal all the way through to the closed, signed contract, is that faster than say one that just kind of came through the standard marketing or sales kind of outreach process? And so when all three of those are kind of working and firing on all cylinders, that's really the demonstration that hey, this ABM program is working. I guess what I would also say, though, is because ABM isn't just like, we have product marketing, we have folks that kind of market for the individual like business lines and services that we offer. ABM is really more of that discipline and practice. And so I've really enjoyed kind of being able to stand up really a center of excellence that we can consult other groups that are looking to introduce ABM. And as a team of just one or two, I'm able to still help kind of introduce some of these ABM principles into some of the demand gen marketing, even if it's maybe not at the same scale or intensity that we are doing on the enterprise side.
Yeah. One thing that actually came up, sorry if I'm taking it on a slightly different direction, but you are generating a lot of insights now with account research, right, for your ABM campaigns. And we've also talked about how you can sort of take all that research about a bunch of different companies and find generalities that are happening at like 10 of 50, for example, and then create a one to few campaign and perhaps build a greater audience. So you're generating all these insights. Marketing operations also is responsible for a lot of data stuff related to marketing. And like, I just wonder, like, where's the line for what you ought to be doing versus what marketing operations ought to be doing as a service for you?
Yeah, well, and we have a fantastic marketing operations and even sales operations team too that we're regularly meeting with to ensure that, hey, there's, data integrity or data quality that we're collecting within our ABM campaigns. In terms of like how we decide what swim lane we're in or like kind of who is doing what, I think because ABM is so new at the company, it's really it's been great to have coworkers that are eager and willing to kind of help whenever they can. And so it's really just kind of a conversation. I fortunately have been in marketing ops roles before. I've, done performance marketing. I've, have enough of a kind of feeling where as long as they're kind of helping with some of those guardrails that I can stay within, then it's, pretty easy to kind of follow the process that they've laid out. And so, I think that's kind of where it just really goes back to just making sure, that there is that collaboration and kind of constant check-ins around what is happening. But from a one-to-many standpoint, I know that that's definitely a goal that we'd like to do with kind of a next iteration of Sensona is how are we kind of combining and then creating campaigns that can feel personal, but then give us a scale where, back to the LinkedIn ads example, we can be reaching 25 to 50,000, HR directors across, these different accounts. And so, what I would say to that is there certainly is the opportunity, but the way that our marketing ops team has really helped is we have the model in place that can scale to those opportunities. That we can have multiple campaign members with different member statuses. We can have them kind of living within multiple campaigns. And it's really just at that point, more a conversation of just making sure that, hey, these accounts are continue to be ring fenced and only for kind of the ABM program and maybe taken out of the general kind of marketing, population that we're doing from a demand generation standpoint. So yeah, they've been a really huge support, and I know different organizations have different sizes of marketing ops, to support them. But if back to your question around commanding budget and understanding if this is something that is working or can be supported, it's critical that you have buy-in from your marketing ops or performance marketing teams just to ultimately be able to track and show if it's working or not.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen different organizations. It just depends how you're sort of structured in terms of who gets to kind of bring in the data. I think that as we sort of come to a close here, one of the things I've really appreciated about you is this is not with every customer in the world, right? But you have this experimental mindset, looking to innovate and play with the technology. And I know you have some sort of guiding principles around, because it can be scary, right? You can put in your brand templates and all this information, feed accounts into, different new technologies, or not know what you're doing, or put content into the market that's not on brand, and you might get in trouble internally. There's a lot of things, when something is new, that can feel scary, and people would rather not lose their jobs sometimes, or the fear of, than try something new. But you've tried something new and it seems to be working. So I just wonder what your principles are around that you can share with others.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I keep going back to a LinkedIn video that I saw just recently, but like B2B marketers especially are just kind of handcuffed by this, they call it, well, like FOMO is like the fear of missing out, but FOFU is the fear of effing up. And so, I think in many cases there's just kind of, hey, we've done this the same way for the last 15 years, it's tried, it's true, it works. And what I guess what I would say to that, or where I've always tried to excel, is can I build new programs or scale activities that are driving value, and basically, kind of make myself indispensable that way. Like, I feel like if you're sitting on your hands, if you're too afraid to act or to make a calculated risk, then you're really just putting yourself on the line to potentially be kind of just seen as not needed anymore at the organization. And so I think to continually drive value at an organization, you need to continue to push the limits in terms of what's possible, all while, obviously taking, like, I spent 10 plus years in banking and payments. And so I know what highly regulated environments are like. And so being able to understand risk, and then at the same time, though, take calculated risks and judgments, I think can really start to differentiate yourselves within a marketing or even broader organization.
And working with startups versus large companies, like I've worked, built both, right? Built startup, worked at a mega sort of SaaS company. How is it that you're able to work with the startup on things like these kinds of experiments in a large organization?
Yeah, I guess what I'm seeing right now is, with AI kind of becoming more and more mainstream each day, and as language learning modules are continuing to evolve, my feeling on this is that there are startups that are doing it better than maybe a blue chip or just kind of an older organization that has been around for hundreds of years, because startups are thinking how they can combine and be efficient while also bringing in this tool that allows you to be very efficient. And so I think it's like kind of like a really great environment for startups to be using really a startup technology that is continuing to evolve, and the ones that can be like Sensona, that can quickly pivot, make changes to the platform, or introduce new language learning modules, I think is what allowed us to really extract the full value from our partnership together, in that we're able to almost in a day or two push through an update, sometimes even less than a day or two, push through an update that can allow us to take advantage of an additional trigger or a different aspect that a language learning module has just launched. So I guess I would just say, because AI is so new, I think there's a lot of startups that are getting it right, compared to maybe some of these older technologies that some of these industry incumbents might do a better job of.
Yeah, and we often talk about like the Salesforces or SAPs of the world, that they have a lot to lose, which is why they'll announce something like an agent force, and it's not really in people's hands a year later, because there's such a large lucrative customer base that if that thing goes rogue, you can't just say, oh, sorry, we'll fix it. This is makes the news, it's in Bloomberg, it's in and so that even though they can probably innovate much faster with the resources that they have, it makes it difficult for them to perhaps move as quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just kind of give a shout out to, I mean, I've mentioned General Assembly a couple of times, but it is, we offer kind of some AI boot camps and other courses that can really help people that might be a little bit scared about how AI can help them, and kind of give them some of those initial principles and needs that can allow you to feel more secure about some of those decisions that you make as you work with a platform like Sensona. So I can't really recommend them enough. If you are interested, you can really just Google General Assembly, and you'll kind of be able to see some of the services and courses that they offer.
Awesome. Always love a good shout out.
Yeah.
We're almost at time, and so I always love to give people a few minutes to kind of go to their next meeting. And is there one last sort of idea, concept, thought that you want to leave the audience with before we jump off?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about here over the past few minutes. But I think what marketers and organizations need to do, and I think a lot of people are finally waking up to this, is like, what is the fear of, or what is inaction? Like, what are the risks, or the opportunity cost of you not taking the risk with using AI, or using it to scale? Is it you're spending 6 weeks on a campaign that you ultimately can't go live with? Is it spending hours of on deep account research that you have to continually repeat, and kind of get away from using strategy? So I think there's a lot of things that I would encourage everyone to look at within their own ABM process, and understand how using AI, or using tools to be more efficient, can ultimately level it up and kind of get them to just an even better spot as an ABM program.
Awesome, man. We'll leave it there. I can't thank you enough for doing this and for being such an awesome customer to work with and design partner. And we're super excited to keep supporting you guys. Truly, we believe that you're doing some of the most innovative, scalable use cases, because we're talking to a lot of marketers and ABM teams. And thanks again for, just being someone who we really enjoy working with.
Oh, absolutely. And likewise, it's been great. What I would say as well is, if anyone wanted to connect on LinkedIn, it's linkedin.com/Austin-Grebe. And, certainly I'd love to connect with you and talk to you individually, either about, my program specifically, how I'm using AI, about Sensona, really anything that I can help with. Feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to be a resource for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. Thanks for those who are
Thanks,
still
Al.
here. Talk soon. Ciao.
All right. Bye.